Okay, so I won't have my camera on right now, and depending on how long I stay here, I'm probably gonna put the camera on once it's late here, so I can turn on the lights. And I'm gonna study. I'm gonna do the Ethernaut stuff today. I was studying a bunch of stuff on Ethereum, and I realized that the way that people, at least it seems that the way that people are doing this right now, that they're updating the smart contracts, because this was the problem I had. I couldn't understand as I was developing this stuff is if I deploy and if I start getting real users and I want to change something, how I'm gonna move all this stuff from one contract to the other one that is gonna be updated. And it seems like the way that people are doing this is through these proxy contracts. And I just got to know them. I don't remember really well how I came across this. I think I was studying the assembly, Solidity assembly, the lower level stuff. And then I realized that through watching these videos, that's how, and it's kind of genius because it makes a lot of sense. The way that it works is pretty much they deploy a contract that works as a routing contract, which is called the proxy contract. And then through that contract, they do the routing to other smart contracts. So every time you're going to deploy something new, a new different smart contract, you actually don't lose the previous one. You're just changing, you just change the proxy contract. And then through that, you can get the information from all of the contracts. And then that way you can always update stuff. But it's not, probably is not the best solution, but I think it's the best solution people could come up with so far. So I'm very interested in understanding that because it seems like it's a crucial thing to know if you're gonna deploy or build stuff that is gonna get a lot of users, because obviously you don't want to have something that you can never change once it scales, because then if it has a bug or it can be hackable, then you're pretty much screwed, and you have to figure out a way then to pass all the information from the contract that you deployed first into new ones. And I wasn't sure how to do that. I'm still not sure actually, but I think now it's a good idea to understand how these patterns work so I can try to implement them. So there's both the proxy upgradable pattern and the diamond pattern, which looks like it's another type of pattern to deal with this sort of stuff. And the downside of these patterns is that it seems like it's more complicated to implement them, and it seems like you need to understand the assembly, because a lot of this stuff, the way that they code it is using assembly and manipulating the stuff in a lower level, manipulating the smart contracts. But I'm also really curious about this. And as I was building this stuff, changing things and seeing what works, I'm kind of thinking about now of scratching the NFT market. I still haven't decided, but I'm thinking about scratching the whole NFT marketplace idea and just migrating fully to data analysis, because that's what I'm really interested on. And I'm not sure if it's worth it. It's gonna be worth it to spend the time developing the smart contracts, because the last thing that I stopped here developing or figuring out is the contract call for this create market item here. So basically, so far the user can mint an NFT, and I was getting a bunch of mistakes because I was in the wrong network. I had my wallet at the Polygon network, and I deployed the contract on the Rinkbuy, and for some reason it's not working to deploy on Mumbai. I don't know why. I tested a bunch of different ways, so that's another thing that I have to see if I can solve it. Because I have no idea what's going on. I suspect it's something to do with the RPC, the provider that connects the code with the contracts with the EVM, I think. And yeah, so I managed to deploy the contracts on RinkBuy, and then I was having a lot of trouble because the functions were not working because I was on the wrong network. And then I realized that I can change through the injected thing, which is somewhere here. That comes with the framework, the library of Web3 React, Web3 React connectors here. So I'm using this one. There's a bunch of different versions. Each one is for a specific wallet, and this is pretty much the stuff that you put inside the library so that it knows which wallet, which networks and which wallets you're gonna allow people to have access to from the front end. And yeah, it's pretty much this provider here, I think. No, the provider is the RPC, JSON RPC, is something else. I think it's on the navigation component. So is this stuff here. When you call the activate from the Web3 React, you're passing this injected, which is going to be the wallet that you're going to allow people to connect to. The downside of this is that I haven't tested, but I'm not sure if I can put multiple connections here. But from what I've seen people do it, they usually do have more than one connect button, but that's not that good. I guess I can build a model or a card or something like that. I can build a component that has multiple different buttons and then make that component pop up, but it's obviously more work. And if you use the use Web3 model library, it comes with the component already. But this is just more details to me that is not really interesting, or I don't want to work on it right now because it's not, doesn't seem like it's difficult to figure out. It's just more about changing the style and that kind of stuff, which is not that interesting. So I think it's better to test everything with the MetaMask connection, which is easier, and then later on, just if I want, figure out how to put more wallets. And then basically after I deploy the contracts and I define which chains I'm gonna use, then I can change the chains here. Oh, another stuff that I was gonna do, which is probably something good to do right now, is to specify what chain is each one. And this is the RPCs for the other connection. I think this one is for, I don't remember really well. This one is for Coinbase. I forgot, but I think it's a cell phone, yeah. It's for cell phone connections because you have the QR code here. But it's another wallet. So one is Ethereum mainnet. 3 is Ropstein. 4 is RinkBuy. 5 is Corley. But the reason why I don't want to focus on these things right now is because the only block I have in my mind so far, the thing that I'm not sure of that I will be able to do is the data analysis part and understanding these complex things about smart contracts and the EVM, about how to distinguish an address from a wallet address from a smart contract, and what kind of information I can get from the blockchain, and also understanding these advanced design patterns when deploying smart contracts. I think that's the next step that I have to focus on, because now I have to decide. I think I'll get to that after I finish this, writing this stuff. So Kovan 137, Polygon mainnet, and the This one is for Mumbai. 8,001 Mumbai. Volleyball. That's nuts. So the last problem I was having was in this component here. After I create the contract abstractions, and so the minting is working fine, but so I call this function on inside of the other component, which is to create a mint the NFT and list on the market, and that's one of the design things that I wasn't sure about because I'm not clear whether or not I want people to be able to mint and then put it on the market in case they want. Like have the option to not list it if they want to just mint and then list it later. Or if I'm gonna make them mint and list in the same action when they press the button there, which is pretty much what I'm doing here. But then the problem is if I allow them to only mint first and list it later, then I'm gonna have to change the form because of the price, and it's gonna make things a lot more complicated because I'm gonna have to put other buttons, and then I'm gonna have to remove the price on the initial form or make it optional, and then I'm gonna have to figure that out and do a bunch of other stuff. And because the NFT market is not my main focus, I think it's not worth it to do that. But if it was, I would probably do it. Separate the minting from the listing, and also figure out how to get to allow people to list from other marketplaces. But pretty much the problem I was having here is that after the first problem is that the token ID was different because initially I was using Web3.js, which is a library that helps you connect with smart contracts from the front end. And then there's another library which is Ethers.js. And from the comparisons I've seen so far, it seems like Ether.js is a lot better because you write less code and it's more simple. And it seems like it's the one that people are gravitating towards now. So it's probably a better library. But I was using the Web3.js because the last project I did, which is the one I got all the stuff from, they used Web3.js because they were using the kit from the Silo network to create the contract abstractions, and now I'm not using the kit anymore. I'm using the context from Web3 React. So it makes more sense to use the Ethers library. But because of that, I had a transaction object. After I did this call here with the safe mint, it returned a transaction object where I could get the token ID to call the other function and list the NFT. But since I changed to Ether.js, I couldn't get the token ID from that object anymore because the transaction object was different. It was just giving me the transaction hash with some other properties, but it didn't have the token ID. So the thing that I thought about was I can just call this function here, which is get NFTs, which is this other function that it is here, that calls this total supply method from the NFT contract and returns all the NFTs on the contract. So right after I mint, I can call this function, and then I can filter this all the NFTs based on the owner address, which is the person that is active on the website. And by doing that, I'm gonna have all the NFTs they have on the contract, and then I can get the last one that they minted, which is gonna be the last index of this array here. The issue with doing that, and the reason why it's worse than before, is because I have to do this filter here, and then it becomes, when if you're gonna scale, there's gonna be a lot more NFTs, and it becomes slower. But I couldn't find another way to do it because I don't have the transaction thing. So the only other way is to retrieve the information from the contract and then filter and then get the last one. And then through that, I get the token ID, and then I call the create market item. But then the problem is that as I call this function here, which is this other function, first I set approval for all, which is something that you have to do because you have to ask for the person for them to give you approval to trade their NFTs because you don't own the NFTs. But when they do this set approval for all, then they're pretty much saying, I allow the market to trade the NFTs for me. So you have to call this function. And I think it comes from one of the functions that is inherited in any NFT contracts that people do, which is this ERC 721, I think. It comes from this, or one of these, but I'm pretty sure it's this one. And then after that, so this works fine, but after that it fails on this function here. And I'm not sure why. It says that it's a gas problem, but as I learned from before, usually when you have this kind of mistake where the transaction is failing because of gas, it's not really because of the gas, it's because there's something wrong with the function, either the way you're calling on the front end or the way you code it on the smart contract. And the thing is, I did a bunch of console logs here and I called this function because I also changed this page here as well. As I was doing that, because I realized that it's better to make the profile to display all the NFTs that exist on the contract instead of the market for that person. Because of that thing that I wasn't sure about if I was gonna allow them to separate the creation and the minting and the listing of the NFT. So I decided to filter the profile based on the NFTs that exist on the NFT contract and not the marketplace contract. And by doing that, I changed all these functions that I had on these get assets here to be very similar to the ones that I have on this here on the get NFTs. But then, and as I was doing that, I did a bunch of console logs to see what objects I would get here, what kind of array, and if I was getting the correct token ID, because this could be one of the reasons why the function wasn't working, or the correct price as well, because as I'm going to show, the prices are being displayed as undefined. So there's probably something wrong with that. And this is the last step that I stopped at. Let me see if I get the cards here. And that's the thing why I'm not sure about what direction I'm gonna take now, because the best way I thought about, because I'm gonna have, well, maybe I'm not gonna have to, but I think it would be better if I changed the contracts and implemented the advanced stuff, the proxy, and try to change the NFT marketplace instead of just trying to fix this specific function call. Because from what I've seen here, I'm gonna have to change a bunch of other functions as well. So this get listing, for example, I won't want to return only one NFT. I want to have a function where I can return all the NFTs on the marketplace so I can display on the Explorer page. And because I'm gonna have to do that, and I'm probably gonna have to change these other functions as well because of the way that I wanna do things. And because the direction I wanna go in the future, which is a lot more focused on the data analysis part of the blockchain instead of the minting and trading of NFTs, which I really don't care about that much. I was thinking about studying the other smart contracts from other marketplaces and also studying doing the Ethernaut stuff and studying these proxy patterns. The reason why I was thinking about doing the Ethernaut stuff is because I think it's gonna be a lot better to learn by doing these challenges here. Even though it's harder and I kind of don't want to do it because of that, because I know it's gonna be annoying. But I think I'm gonna learn a lot more by doing these things here. And then after doing these challenges here, I can study these proxy patterns, and then I can start deploying or start changing the smart contracts I have here. But the annoying part of doing that, and the part that I hate the most about doing these smart contracts, is that then I'm gonna have to make a bunch of tests for them. That's really the thing that I'm not sure about, because it's kind of a trade-off. Because the more time I spend doing this tests here, the less time I'm gonna have to study the data analysis on the blockchain, the way that EVM works. And from the experience I have from the previous project, it's really annoying to develop these tasks here. And yeah, but it is the best way to do it, because you don't want to deploy the contract each time. But it's really, really annoying. So that's why I'm not sure what I'm gonna do now. And the other option I have is to just try to figure out what's wrong with this specific function, and then change this specific function and create tests for this specific function, and then just make it work for this in order to allow people to list it. And this is what's making me think about changing the whole thing as a instead of making an NFT marketplace. No, actually, this goes into the talk we had yesterday with this guy that came to talk about the projects and stuff. I think his name is, let me see if I have it here. Furkan, I'm not sure how to say this. Furkan Leiden. Yeah, so they invited this guy here to talk. And talk about the Buildspace and his experience. He owns a couple of companies, or found a couple of companies. I think this is one of them. Then there's Founders Inc. and another one. I think App Loving as well. He founded these 3 companies, and he was talking about his experience and the mistakes he made, and what things he wished he had done. And from that talk, I realized that, because the first initial impression I had from this nights and weekends thing that they are doing is that the main priority is for you to ship something as fast as possible, and they want you to have a product. But at the same time, the kind of like the vibe that I got from the conversation is that it's not so much about, it is about shipping as fast as you can, but you can't really do something that you really don't care about, because then you're doing just for the sake of doing it, and that's not the point of the whole thing. So I think it's probably better from Farza and Buildspace standpoint if you try to do something that you really want to do, but not be able to ship a very nice product, and just ship, like, as long as you ship something, you have something to show. I think that's fine. And they don't really want you to have something that is incredible. Like, the main priority, like this guy said, is to ship things. And he talked about that that one of his products, or things that he did, he deployed the thing, or he shipped the thing, even without the connection for the MetaMask working. For the button wasn't working, was kind of shitty, but he deployed anyway, he shipped anyway. And he said that it is a lot better if you ship constantly, even though you don't have the best stuff. And at the same time, it's better to do something that you think people are gonna like and that you are interested in. So this is the main thing. He said that people, if you have something that people really like, you definitely be able to tell it, because it won't be even a question. People will keep asking you for that stuff, and for you to build it and to make it work. And it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, so that's the kind of the discussion I have in my mind as well, because there's always this trade-off of being able to ship something and being interested in what you're doing, because most of the ideas that I have are too complicated, and that's the problem. And that's the reason why I chose the NFT marketplace in the first place, is because the other idea, it seems like it's this very big thing that is probably going to take me years to build it, because there's so much information and so many things I want to do. But then after this talk, I realized that I shouldn't have that high of a bar to deploy something. They're not expecting me to build something that is going to be crazy after 6 weeks. As long as you have something that works and that displays something, then that's fine. You should just focus on trying to do what you feel like is the best or you're curious about, and then ship it and then expand from that. And from my current way that I'm doing things, and I think that's partly because of the way that, because I'm still learning, and it's kind of hard to tell when you're ready or not to really build things because of the imposter syndrome. But from what I've got is that you should ship as fast as possible, and that's what matters the most. And you don't really need to have like extremely, and I have the tendency of wanting something to be perfect before I ship it, or setting the bar too high for the initial thing that is going to be. So the first time I want to ship, when I ship something, I want it to be extremely good. But that's the wrong way of looking at things. I should ship as fast as possible, and even if it's crap or shitty, I can always improve later. And that's the reason why I'm thinking about scratching this whole NFT marketplace thing, and then just having a basic UI and start working on the project that I have in mind, which is the data analysis and the machine learning stuff, and then just deploy and ship as fast as possible and just iterate as I go. So that's probably a better mentality to have. But I'm still not sure which path I'm gonna go through. That's why I'm talking a lot now. Because I just want to share, that's the point of doing these streams and recordings. I just want to share my thinking and thought process. Because later on, I think it might be valuable for people in case I build something cool or do something, people can go back to these videos and see what actually happens, instead of just me giving them advice or something like that. So I think what I'm gonna do today is work on this stuff and then study the diamonds, the proxy patterns and stuff like that. And I'm probably gonna work on the UI, I think, first. So pretty much I said all that to say that I'm not, my main focus, because before, when I first got into Buildspace, into the Night Weekends program, my main focus was to make sure I was gonna ship or meet the deadlines. But I think that's a bad way of looking at things. I think I would rather fail on the nights and weekends stuff and actually build something that I want, instead of being so much concerned with meeting the deadlines that they have and the projects that they have, and not doing something that I think is cool or that I'm gonna be interested about. I think it's much better to do something that I think that I'm interested on, and even if it's shitty, when I deploy it, at least I'm doing something that I like and I think it has potential. So I think I'm gonna end up probably changing the whole UI that I have there and then scratching these contracts here and doing something else. Yeah, I'm gonna put some music and start doing the challenges. I also saw that he has his website here, one of these companies, Third Web, and it seems like they have free stuff, free smart contracts that you can use to kind of deploy it faster, which is really, really interesting. And it makes a lot of sense. Because that's the thing, there's a lot of tutorials about this stuff, and it makes sense that you shouldn't have to do the same stuff all the time. So it makes sense that you have, in the same way that you have frameworks for Web 2, like Django or Flask, you should have some of these frameworks on Web 3. And I think this is what he's doing here with the Third Web, which is really smart. But I haven't used it yet, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna use some of the stuff for my project. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do here. But the most annoying part is gonna be the testing. I hated that so much because it's not really building anything or doing anything. It's just annoying to build the stuff, to test the functions and see if they work. And I have to think about what kind of contracts do I want to make if I'm gonna make the data analysis stuff. Like what kind of smart contracts would be useful for that? I don't know that yet because it seems like everything I want to do, I could do it with the front end and not have any smart contracts. But the downside of that is then I wouldn't be able to build smart contracts and become better at that, which is something that I want to do. So maybe I can try to build something that interacts with oracles and maybe gets information from them. That might be interesting. So probably setting the. I think that's what I need to do actually. Is I need to erase this. I won't do this right now just because I already have the link there, and I can allow people to mint the NFT and stuff for Buildspace. But what I will do is probably delete these contracts and then start from scratch, and not look at tutorials or anything like that. Go off on what do I think is going to be interesting to build. I think that's the best approach. Like, what do I want to achieve, and then think about creating the contracts from that point. That's probably much better and interesting way to do this. And the risk of doing this on this program is that obviously I can fail or not be able to deploy anything, and that's the challenge. But I think it's better to do it this way, probably. And then before I was thinking the other way around, where I thought it's better to be able to ship it, and then even though I'm doing something that I don't like. But now I think it's better to go from the beginning and think about what do I want to do, and then study and explore based on that. Look carefully at the contract code below. You will beat this level. If you claim ownership of the contract, you reduce its balance to 0. Things that might help, how to send. If I'm not mistaken, I need to have the console log here. Oh, I still have the information from the previous one, so I don't think I need to create a new instance. And then the way that I interact with this is making contracts. It's just contracts. Yeah, okay. And then here I have all the functions of the contract here. Things that might help. How to send Ether when interacting with an API. How to send Ether outside of the API. Converting to and from way Ether units, see help command. And player, Ethernaut level. Also I can use two-way, convert Ether units two-way. I can use this function. Maybe I should write it down on Notepad, just so I don't have the console all messed up. Oh, the other thing I was gonna see is how to use Web3 React to change the networks, so that I don't run into that problem where the user is on one network but the contracts are on other ones. But after that I thought about, and I thought that probably the best way is to just remove the networks from the connectors here, because that way it's probably not gonna allow the user to connect on any network that is not part of these ones, the supported ones. And that's the easiest way to do it, but later on I can look at that as well, in case I need it in the future. Another thing that's bothering me is this thing that I can't deploy to Mumbai. I'm not sure why. So maybe I should try to fix that as well. I think I tried a bunch of different ways, a bunch of different RPCs, and still doesn't work. How to send Ether when interacting with an API, how to send Ether outside of the API. Converting to and from way. I'm gonna search for these things here. How to send Ether when interacting with an API. And I'm pretty sure this is on the ring by, not fallback methods. So as far as I understand, fallbacks are functions that you have as a fallback, like it says, when you contact one of the functions and it doesn't work. So it's kind of like a default response whenever you're interacting with a smart contract. And I think I've seen some critiques of this, because you shouldn't have this, you should just fail, but I don't have enough knowledge to have an opinion on that, I think. So I think I might, before I start this, I think I might search for Mumbai RPCs so I can try to deploy with different URLs there. Because that way, if it takes a long time, at least I can see, as I do these things, I can see after that if it worked or not. And I think I'm gonna spend a bunch of time today streaming, solving these challenges and studying the other stuff. So because I'm gonna be here for a long time, probably it's worth it to do this. I might go back and forth between doing this Ethernaut stuff and working on this thing here, changing the UI and things like that. I think what I'm gonna do actually is after I try to deploy this through Mumbai, I'm gonna commit the changes. I'm gonna do the build and ship and have the link in this way that it is, and then I'm gonna create a different branch, and then I'm gonna change the whole UI for the stuff, change the navigation bar, and think about what kinds of things I think it would be interesting to have there. So I'm not gonna look at any other projects. I'm just gonna think about from the top of my mind what I think it would be interesting to have, and then I'm gonna put this stuff on the navbar, and then I'm gonna see as I go if I can create the pages for each one of those things. I think that's a good way. And then depending on how hard it is or how easy it is, I might add or remove things. I don't think I tried this one yet. I tried this shoe, and it didn't work. This one is not working. It gives 404. I don't know why. I think I'll be right back. Yeah, just a sec. Alright, I'm back. Yeah, see this 403 forbidden. It's kind of hard for me to explain all this stuff that is going through my mind because I'm not clear on these things, and I'm just speaking through pretty much. Not sure if record is the right way to put it, but to express on where my mind is at right now, and I'm not clear on these ideas. But I think what it comes down to is I think I have too high standards for myself, and I think this is very common, and it probably comes from judgment. I think a lot of people have that, where people are constantly judging other people, especially CEOs or people in positions of power, and saying how bad of a job they are doing and what they should be doing differently. So the human mind has the tendency of putting people on a pedestal and either making them heroes or villainizing them. And the reason why that happens is because your body wants you to rationalize your position, so you don't expend the energy and run into more risks. So by doing that, by putting people on those different positions, you exempt yourself from the responsibility of changing your own life and taking action and making mistakes and taking risks. So I think this is something that I'm seeing on myself, where you create this impossible standard for yourself, and then you don't want to ship the product or do anything because you want to figure everything out before you start taking action and start deploying stuff. And I think that the bottom line and the stuff that I got from the talk yesterday is more that, where it's probably a better approach for people like me, especially, to think about deploying first and then learning from the mistakes instead of trying to figure everything out from the beginning. Because I think people that are more analytical like me, or think a lot and reflect a lot about life, you kind of run into paralysis by analysis. And there's always a balance there, because it's kind of like jumping into cold water. One extreme approach would be to jump in the cold water and figure out how you're going to cross the river after you've jumped with no analysis at all. And that's obviously bad, because you could jump into the water and it's too cold and you have a heart attack and you die. The other extreme approach would be if you sit there forever and you never cross the river because you don't know if the water is too cold or not, and you just keep thinking about it and don't do anything. That's the other extreme. That's bad, because then obviously you don't reach the goal and you're gonna have to cross the river anyway. And I think the middle approach is maybe you put something in the water to analyze it, and then you try this other thing, and then try this other thing, and you do these incremental steps until you're able to see if whether or not it makes sense. And each iteration you apply a different strategy, and then you evolve based on that, and then you're able to cross the river. And that's why there isn't correct response for anyone. It's always going to depend on the person, because depending on who you are and what you're more inclined to do, the way that you should deviate your thinking should be different. But I think for myself, I'm more one of the type of people that looks at the river and thinks about it instead of jumping into the water. And based on the talk yesterday, I think I should shift my focus more on taking more action and thinking less about how good it's going to be, or the types of problems I'm going to have in the future. And that's why I think it might be a better idea to, instead of working on the NFT marketplace, to work on the data analysis stuff and just deploy, and you don't have such a high standards for building something great in the beginning. Just have a simple page and seeing where it goes from there. But obviously, I'm not clear on that, and I might change my mind in the future, because it is always extremely complex and there isn't any right answer, I think. It always depends on the circumstances. And that's why it's so hard to, when people ask for advice or stuff like that, it's so hard to, because there isn't a right way to do things. It's always depending on the circumstances and the content and the context. Yep, I think I should cut this one. Let's try again with this other RPC URL. I tried Infura, Alchemy, Medic, the standard one from the wallet, this Medic today from this blog, this one. I tried this one, Alchemy, Infura. Neither, all of them failed so far. And the thing about this is that it doesn't give me any mistake or any error here, so it's hard to know what is going on. It's hard to know if it's one thing that I'm doing wrong or if it's just the RPC that is slow now for some reason. Maybe people are not deploying or validating. Oh, and another thing is I think I understand now the analogy that Austin makes, where he talks about Ethereum being more of this vendor machine. And it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. It's because the only way for the blockchain to exist and to keep existing is if people trade on it. So the blockchain is kind of like this thing where if there is no flow, then it dies. So the essence of it is because people need to be incentivized to trade on it so that you have movement, and then through that you maintain the chain. So yeah, and it's a different perspective than a normal database, I think, because the database, you don't need any flow. You can just store the information and it's going to stay there forever. But in the blockchain, if no one is transacting, then you lose the information because there's no one to validate the blocks anymore. So even though the smart contracts are still there, it kind of like it dies. So how good or bad it is, it's directly correlated with the flow of information that exists on the chain. And I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. And it does change how you think about it. Because there needs to be incentives on it for people to trade on it. And this might be an interesting thing to investigate as well. The correlation between the flow of information and how well or bad the blockchain is. And I think it's a similar dynamic from this decentralized exchanges where you have liquidity pools, because it's the same thing. The higher the liquidity pool, the more money it has on it, the more effective it is, because any movement doesn't change the distribution that much. And I think the blockchain is the same logic, or the more people we have transacting, the more powerful it is, because it's harder and harder to break or to hack it. So there is definitely a physical relationship there of the flow of information, and which can be viewed as mass as well, and gravity and density, and the validity of the network. So that may be a potential way to merge machine learning with the blockchain, which pretty much means that the blockchain is kind of like a more effective way for money to compute things. But the biggest issue here in my mind is that the problem we have is that the blockchain doesn't change the fundamental mechanics of market dynamics on a global scale, which is the tendency of the limbic system to overfit the information of the environment, because the prefrontal cortex is not powerful enough, both maybe not at the individual level, because it depends on the individual, but at the collective level, the mass of the limbic system and the movement in relationship to power outweighs the power and movement of the prefrontal cortex in relationship to exponential attack. And that makes things get out of balance the more power you have, because the reaction force is not strong enough to regulate the movement of the markets, and the movement of the markets is based on the limbic system, which overfits the environment. And that's the problem we have, because it collapses when the more power you have, because the tension increases due to this lack of symmetry. And that's why the blockchain can be really good, but really bad at the same time, because it reduces the friction, I think. And it makes the market dynamics more effective, because there's a direct correlation between the flow of information and this balance of the mass and density of each thing. And there's this vicious cycle and effect that it's going to have, that I think it's already having right now, which is the effect of the markets, which is the exponential distribution over time, because the regulation forces are not strong enough to balance it out. And this is just going to happen more faster on the blockchain. So I think that the thing that needs to change in some way, and part of the reason why I want to do the data analysis thing, is to think about ways in order to create intelligent autonomous systems that will be capable of regulating the infrastructure based on the laws of physics and the Nash equilibrium of like a poker game between people, because you don't want necessarily to have perfect information, because that is going to lead to the same vicious cycle that market economy leads to, which is the corruption of power, because any agent of the system is not capable enough of having the holistic vision of the balance of the whole system, because it overfits the data. And that's why collective intelligence is probably better than individual intelligence. That's the purpose of it, is that the laws of physics breaks down, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the more nodes on the network you have, the higher the holistic view of the system in order to balance itself. So kind of lost my train of thought there. Oh yeah, I was talking about the perfect information. So the problem with having perfect information and tracking everything, which is the direction that we're going, is that because of the market dynamics, the nodes that have the access of information and that are able to manipulate that information in order to gain things increases exponentially, which makes it the connection of the nodes and the holistic vision of the whole thing as a whole to become worse. And that's why power corrupts, absolutely, because over time you lose track of the integration of everything, and your perception gets distorted because of that. And the more power it has, the faster it happens. And that's the path I think that perfect data leads to. So it's not feasible and it's not realistic to have systems that will have perfect data and be sustainable, because the universe is not matter, not only matter, is potential as well. And the combination of these two things is the collection of space-time, the geometry, or the essence of space-time. And so in my mind, if you want to build a system that is sustainable, you have to integrate both of these aspects at the same time. And I think the way that that can have this effect would be to have a network of intelligent systems that they play poker with themselves, so they don't require perfect information. They can act with imperfect information, and they're pretty much agents that kind of like human beings do, but instead of human beings having artificial intelligence on the Web3 to do this, because it's going to be far more effective, because it's you can't stop the expansion of artificial intelligence and from the market economy point of view, and so it's going to be necessary to have the regulation. I think you can't run away from that, and the only way to have that in the same level as the expansion is to implement machine learning with a network of these agents that update themselves based on the poker game they play with themselves, that each agent has a policy state, and then they try to try to optimize for the Nash equilibrium given the state of the network and in relationship to the laws of physics and the flow of information inside of the network. And I think if that is possible, it might be possible to change the rules of the game from being based off market economy, where consumer and supplier determine the dynamics of the flow of information. And instead of having that, you have decentralized nodes that update themselves in relationship to the laws of physics, in relationship to what's the highest probability that the overall alignment of different tensors in the network will have harmony and synergy between them, I think. But that's another part that makes this extremely difficult, because the future is probably computationally reducible and there's too much information. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges I have in my mind right now, is trying to understand how would that look like? What is the best distribution of probabilities that can optimize for health and let's say quote unquote good factors of human life, how to increase the quality of life, what that looks like for the most amount of people possible. And I'm not sure how to do that. I don't think you can reduce that to the laws of physics, because that because the thing that the future is computationally reducible. So there's no amount of data that can tell you about subjective experience, and that's the problem, the hard problem of consciousness, and that's the biggest barrier, I think, for creating a system like this. But that's the thing that I was talking about before, where I can't think about all of these things, because otherwise, if I keep thinking and I don't deploy anything, I'm not gonna do anything. So I need to start at some point. And that's why I think that the data analysis makes more sense. But I could obviously be wrong about that as well. Another thing that I just realized here is that the use graph wasn't working when I was doing like this. I don't remember exactly why, but I think the contract abstractions were not working on inside this function here. So I had to change on the profile page. So maybe I'll change there as well. So I'm declaring them inside of the function here. Yeah, but let me go back to this stuff. And talking about these things helps me clarify my mind, because a lot of times you have a bunch of these ideas and in reality they don't make sense because they're not practical. And the reason why is because you have underlying assumptions of the way that you're thinking that you didn't realize, but the biases compound over time, because it's just the nature of reality. And the relationship between this identity and matter, the paradox of this duality between spiritual and scientific. So I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with this moon bias stuff here. I think I'm gonna leave it like this and use the ring bias test. But then I have to see. I don't want to deploy to Polygon yet because I don't want to spend money, even though it's cheap. So that's the issue. I won't be able to test to see if it's working on Polygon or not until I deploy it. And none of these things are working, and I think I didn't find anywhere that explained. So maybe I can look it up again. Maybe I should be using the mnemonic. But the thing that the reason why I don't think it's a problem like this is because I'm not getting any errors. I think if I had to put something like something else besides the private key here, I would be getting some message before, because it would be a problem of interacting with or creating the instance instead of. I think it's more of a problem where I'm not being able to connect or to validate the transaction somehow. I think I already tried this one, didn't work as well. So I'll figure this out later, probably. I'll go back to the Ethernaut stuff. So I have to claim ownership and reduce the balance to 0. Remember that this function passes ownership. So I'm probably gonna have to use a fallback function to activate this one. And then I'm gonna have to call the withdraw function, probably. Yeah, I think that's the exploit here. But I'm not sure how to do that. Probably I'll have to use these functions to convert as well. So if the contributions of the sender are bigger than the owner, it becomes the owner. And here I have 1000 Ether. But why would I need a fallback then? Can't I just pass? I guess, yeah, I'm not gonna have this balance here. Oh, there's this one as well. Message.value bigger than 0 and contributions dot message sender. No, but can't I just call the contribute and pass and then call the receive? I think that's what I'm gonna try to do. I'm gonna search for this first. I have the fallback payover. This one seems interesting. It's probably what they want me to do. I'm not sure if I can use Web3 though. Contract.function name.send transaction. Let's just try that. Dot contribute. Yeah, the only thing that it has apparently is it needs to be greater than 0. So it seems simple, but I'm probably missing something. And send transaction. And then value. I don't think I need to put this from and true, but maybe I do. True way. So I think I need to pass an object with the value. And then I need to use this true way here. But I'm not sure if I should just use true way. Because here is getting from the Web3 library. Or maybe I should try to call a function and then see if how can I have a fallback. The biggest problem with this is if I get stuck then. I think I can look at the solution. Because I don't want to be stuck for too long on any specific challenge. Otherwise I'm not gonna have time to do other stuff. To work on the project. And also not sure if I can use Web3 or other libraries. This is supposed to be easy. It is low if you claim ownership of the contract, reduce its balance. And let me try just this and then true way. I'm just on 0.001. So maybe if I just do this. So maybe I need to put pass from and true. Oh, so that should be a big number. So it's probably this. Okay, now it works. My only concern is that if I spend all my gas, then I won't be able to work on other stuff. Because I won't have any money to test things on the project, and it takes 24 hours to be able to ask again. Oh, but that's just, yeah, it's okay. It fails, but it still took the money. Maybe that was just for gas. weird. It doesn't have any modifiers here, so... Oh, message.values should be less than 0.01. And I send 0.01. Maybe that's why. I'm gonna try with a smaller value, see. What if I just call the receive? Oh, message that value needs to be... But let me try to call the receive first. Receive. Maybe I'm typing it wrong. It looks like it's the same. Oh, so there isn't the receive. Interesting. I wonder why it's here though. Maybe it only shows up after you contribute. Because that would be too easy, I think. If you can just call that function. Yeah, so I think the path is probably to try to contribute, and then after that we're gonna have the ownership. Let's see if it works now. Okay, so this time it went, seems like it went through. So it reverted because of the value, probably. Yeah, but now let's see if I can call the other ones. And then after I do that, I'm gonna see if I passed. It's supposed to be easy, so maybe that's all I have to do. I was thinking about something more complex where I have to call the function and then have a fallback function. The other thing I'm not sure is on the complex levels how I'm gonna code a very I'm gonna code the entire function on the console here. Color is not there. Okay, so it's not that easy. Can I see who the owner is by just calling owner? And do the contract again. So I send this and increased the contribution. Oh yeah, because my contribution is not greater than the owner's contribution, which is like this. Oh, I think I get it now. So I can only contribute this amount, and then I have to make a contribution that is bigger than this one. So that's why I should probably use a fallback for this, because of the reentrancy thing, where I'm just gonna keep calling the function until my contribution is higher. But I'm not sure. And the thing is, how do I code something more complex on the console? It's kind of bad to write there. Maybe I can write it on the IDE and then pass Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V in the console. So the owner is this, I think. No, this is the address of the contract.
That was way before her heart was broken by a man. Oh, she's crying. Oh, I see her dying. The clouds are coming in and then she cries into a river. Stars are shining bright, only when you couldn't see her. Oh, she's hiding. Inside you see she's trying. The sky is crying. The sky is crying.
Let me see if I do it like this. Maybe I need to call it. Right, if I use a weight. Okay, so this is the owner. It's the same here. So I can call this method to check if I passed or not. So let me think, what else can I do? So I have to see how to send. I think that's already got that. This already got it as well. Fallback methods. I'm probably gonna have to use a fallback. None of the other functions match the function identifier or no data was provided with the function call. Has no name or arguments. If it is not marked payable, the contract will throw an exception if it receives playing either without. Maybe I should watch a video on the reentrancy attack to remember how it works. I think I know the concept. You just call the function and then you have a fallback, and then if they didn't update the state at the end of the function, you can keep calling that function and removing things, removing the balance, but I'm not really sure about the details of how it works. Cannot return anything, can be defined once per contract. Oh, maybe they receives the fallback, but it shouldn't have something here. I think the fallback should be the one that I code, but I'm not sure. Because the receive doesn't show in the methods of the contract. So maybe this receive function is the fallback function. Oh, and if I send if I send a value that is lower than this, and it fails, I can call receive. Maybe that's what they want me to do. So I try to call this contract, it reverts, but I put on the fallback to call this one. And then I become the owner and I get the funds. Oh, there's only withdraw, contributions, get contributions, an owner. The receive doesn't show up. Yeah, I think that's what they want me to do, but I'm not sure. I don't know if the fallback is a function that you have on your contract when you're interacting with another one, or if it's on the contract that you are interacting with.
It's never too late to leave yourself behind now. Oh, it's never too late if we know what we're looking for. You need a little conversation and some good vibrations headed into consummation. Baby, thank you for your patience. You always keep me waiting, trying to build up the sensation. I know what you're doing.
Cause when you reach for me, I'm there, I'm by your side and you're holding me. I'm alright, I'm alright. I wanna hold you, I wanna touch you, I wanna feel good and make you.
But how can I know? What if I just call the contract? Without calling any function. I should probably use a wait as well next time. That's what I don't understand. How can I see what is the fallback function? And how to call it? Yeah, so it works. And there's no message here. Oh, it is declare a call using fallback. External paywall. This call and a non-existent function is named on the contract. Not sure if I understand this really well. Market external. I'm pretty sure that this is the callback. Yeah, there is no function here, just receive external paywall. So this must be, maybe, no. Yeah, this is not inside of this. So this has to be the callback function, the fallback function. And I think I understand. I got the idea correctly. It's just a matter of understanding how to activate that. I think what I have to do is call the contract with a message of 0.001 or higher value, and then it's gonna fail, and then once it fails I'll call this receive function, and then because the value is greater than 0 it's gonna make me the owner, and then after that I withdraw. But the question is how to do that. When the function identifier doesn't match any of the available functions during a smart contract. They can't accept arguments. They can return anything. It can be... okay. Fallback. Functions are executed if a specific contract receives plain ether by no other data associated. I didn't check to see if I am the owner now, because I just sent the contract ether without calling any function, but I don't think I am. Okay, works. This is my address. Let me see if I can call the withdraw now. Oh, so it's easier than I thought probably. I just have to send ether to the contract without calling any function, and then I become the owner, because the fallback is this one. I was thinking about that I would have to call the fallback function inside of the call, so it triggers once the execution reverts, and then it triggers this function here. I think it worked, probably. Let me see. I'm the owner and I withdraw the funds. This balance. Okay, so let's check.
That's all they talk about.
Nice. Awesome.
The ocean.
So let's go back. Let's go to the next one.
And the sun sets.
Yeah, I don't think I need... Well, go to the next level, okay. Claim ownership of the contract below to complete this level. Things that might help. Solidity remix ID. Okay, so I'm gonna have to use the remix. I think I did some stuff here before. Don't remember. I think it saves everything that you've done before. Don't delete it. But I'm not really sure how it works. I'm not sure if it uses local storage or cookies to start this, or... It makes sense to me that it would be like that, but... maybe this stuff comes with the ID. Yeah, I kind of want to build contracts that use the assembly and this delegate calls stuff, because I think it's really interesting to understand how it works at a low level. And it probably opens up a lot of possibilities of what you can do and what kind of data you can retrieve as well. Because I think for extracting data, the thing that is going to be very difficult is understanding what logic to implement. because I'm gonna have a massive amount of transactions and blocks, so I'm gonna have to think about what kind of metrics or heuristics I want to put in there to find stuff about different wallets. And that's where the challenge is, I think. And because of all these delegate calls and proxy contracts and stuff like this, it becomes harder because you have to understand what kind of information you can have access to. This is OpenZeppelin, but it doesn't have any, so I don't think it matters if it's ERC20 or something else. I'm gonna go with the default. Didn't create anything. Oh, I just created a new workspace, maybe. Ethernaut challenge. I was thinking about something else as well. Oh, I was gonna see how many blocks I have here. Yeah, I'm almost at 8 million blocks now. That's the other downside, that it takes a long time to get the blocks. I might look into how to create a fast node again and try to get information from the fast node, but from the light node. But I remember that the downside of that is that if you have a light node, you can't have access to all the information. The only way to have access to all the information of all the transactions that happened on the blockchain is to have a full node. And the full node takes a long time to set up, and because you need to update to get in sync with all the data that the blockchain has, and because you need the hardware, the SSD drives, to be able to store the information. And I think by now it's probably 1 terabyte or even higher that you need. And I don't have that. But it might be better to have a light node to get information than using their RPCs, but I'm not sure. It's another thing that I'm gonna have to look into. Okay. Also, I have to get a new instance probably. Maybe I can use other test nets as well to do this. I think it doesn't matter. It's based upon what instance you get probably. So Fallout map, there's a mapping with address and ints, all the locations, the owner equals message.sender. So fall one out. So there's a function that makes the owner equals message.sender, and locations owner equals message.value. And the modifier and allocate. There isn't any fallback, it seems like. Require. Maybe I should just search for the name of this stuff. I think I'm gonna close this for now. I might go back into this. Just see what smart contracts they have. But I think what I want to do is, like I said before, is start from scratch and not look at anything and just think about the stuff that I want to implement as I go. I think it's gonna be better than looking at different contracts. Oh, so it's probably an overflow or underflow problem, because they're using the math library there as well. And in case I get stuck too long, I'm just gonna look at these solutions. I'm gonna search for the solutions. And it's not fallbacks, fallouts. Fixed point numbers are not fully supported by Solidity yet. They can be declared but cannot be assigned true or from. The order at the bottom of rational integer literals sense. Division on integer literals used to truncate in earlier versions, but it will now convert into a rational number. Solidity float double data types are not provided there, yeah. And I think the reason for this is because it makes the EVL more efficient and spend less gas. That's why you have the 10 to 18 decimals or units, so you can have decimals using integers. So I suspect this challenge is probably something to do with this math stuff. He's using safe math here. And this is the constructor. And can't I just send... Okay. Can't I just send... I just call this allocate? No, it's not gonna change anything. Acquire allocations bigger than 0. Transfer. Yeah, there's nothing here that transfers ownership. So this one's not so easy. Oh, this one is the only one that has the modifier. Also this one, oh no, it requires, yeah, but it doesn't pass ownership. Message.sender transfer the balance. From. Just the fall one out. And what if I just call this? It's not a function. So the question is, how can I call this without calling it directly? Because that's the only way, otherwise there's no other function that passes ownership. So maybe I should put this on here and deploy here. First I think you need to compile. We need to save this. Zero point 0.06. This one. Doesn't work, I'm just gonna look it up. Maybe let me try the easiest one first. Oh, but this already has the at thing. What if I change? Yeah, that's probably the error. And still doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, if it doesn't compile, it's not gonna allow me to deploy. Oh, I can install here. I didn't understand what they mean by this. I thought they meant to run it on my local computer, but it doesn't make sense to me. It looks like it doesn't work. So maybe I have to see how to install npm on remix. I still need to understand what this Fallout is all about. What is Fallout solidity? I think that the only thing that makes sense for me now is finding a way to call this function or this constructor, and it's probably going to involve something to do with this Fallout and maybe something to do with safe map. Using safe map for unit 256. So maybe it has something to do with the way that you send the transaction, and that generates an overflow or something like that, and then you use that to call the follow one out. That's kind of the logic that makes sense to me right now, but I'm not sure if that's what I'm supposed to do. I think it increases in difficulty as I go. Also, re-entrancy is only on the top. These ones are probably really hard. But so far I like the way that they did this stuff. It's easy to interact with, and it forces you to think about what's happening instead of just following a tutorial or something like that. Maybe I should save this for later in case I have to look at it. So if I can't find anything for Fallout, I'm gonna search for overflow hacks or something like that, or underflow. This is probably the thing that they want me to do. I'll be right back. I think one of the reasons why I don't want to deploy as well, I have a resistance towards shipping something fast, is because I don't want people to steal my idea. But I think that's also another thing that people think too much about and is not really as important as people think, including myself. Because what matters is not the idea, it's the execution. And even if you have something consolidated, people are still gonna copy it. So you should assume that as a default, and your concern and focal point shouldn't be in competitors or anything like that. It should be more in trying to deliver what people want, I think. Instead of focusing on competition, focusing on delivering the best product that you can. Maybe that's not the point of the challenge. It says constructor here, but it doesn't have the constructor keyword. It seems like it's just a normal function.
It's all over me. Sound is a color. Spectrum of love. Heart is a shelter. And you're holding my hand. Falling together. Spectrum of love.
Reset your drums. This one looks interesting. I wonder if I can call the constructor as well. I remember there's some difference where the constructor is initialized first and then the other functions are initialized later and is viewed as a separate thing, I think, on the low level Solidity, based on those articles that I was reading some days ago. But I don't remember the details really well. Oh, I found that the Open Zeppelin has a YouTube channel as well, and as I was searching for the proxy stuff, their channel seems to be really good. I think I'm gonna watch a bunch of their videos. I really liked this video here. They really know what they're doing, it seems like. From watching that video, the guy really knows what he's doing. Maybe we should search for Fallout constructor. That might give me things to look at. I'm gonna spend a little bit more time, and then if I can solve it, I'm gonna look at the article there that probably has the solution. Yeah, maybe this is also good to look at, to search for, how to exploit a Solidity constructor. I think maybe it's not the the thing that I was thinking about with the underflow and overflow. It might be more something to do with the constructor. I was thinking about maybe I have to call one of these functions using a integer that is gonna overflow or something like that, and then once that happens, then I call a fallback function or something like that. Sure, I have another fallback function that is gonna change the constructor somehow or do something like that, and that will allow me to become the owner. But now I'm starting to think that it's probably more to do with this initialization here, that is using the function and it's saying that this is the constructor, but I don't understand how is that possible if it's not specified there.
It's like I'm waiting, like I'm watching you fall out.
And this one is also interesting, reset address. Maybe I can call this. Let's see if this works. Okay. That's interesting. I've never seen this address here. From what I know from Flashbots, it seems like the people try to build a bunch of different contracts to get the zeros, because you spend less gas if you have a contract that has more zeros. This is very interesting that this one, I'm not sure if it is the only address that is all zeros, or maybe it's because of the way that it was initialized, or the constructor. I'm not sure. Because here is saying a different address. So maybe that's a hint of something that I need to do. It's also interesting that it's telling me to use remix ID. Not sure though. I think I almost never use, probably used once or twice remix. I just don't like it that much. I think it's a lot better to do stuff with VS Code or PyCharm. And I'm not sure. It has to be the constructor. It has to be something something to do with this thing here. But I'm not sure how remix would is related to that. What if I remove this just so I can deploy and see?
If you want me, if you need me, I'll be yours.
But why doesn't it work?
If you want me,
Oh, because then I have to put uint 256 on all of them, I think. And if you do this, it's like the same thing on C++, where if you put using namespace, then you don't need to put standard before the stuff. I think it works the same way here. Yeah, and I don't want to write uint 256 on all of them. This is not gonna work. So maybe this is the way to install npm and then install the, or maybe I have to put the GitHub access token. Yeah, that's probably what I need to do. But because I'm streaming, I don't think I'm gonna do this. Before I discuss the exploit, let's quickly discuss how smart contracts are executed by EVM. Let's start with the simplest possible smart contract where it has a constructor with public visibility but doesn't do anything. Solidity's compiler Solc throws gibberish characters as runtime code when we compile this contract. For the Web3 client to create the on-chain contract, an RPC call is made. When the transaction executes on-chain, EVM initializes the memory stack and bootstraps the environment. After the initialization, EVM stores the contract runtime bytecode in the virtual ROM, and the contract code is executed instruction by instruction. When an error occurs during the execution of the code, EVM stops the execution and sends the issue to the execution environment, where true address is null to indicate a contract deployment. Data includes everything to successfully deploy, initialize the code, persist state, and some sanity checks. What is that data bytecode? Let's dive into the data. Yeah, now I have a strong feeling that it's definitely gonna be something to do with the constructor, with the way that this was initialized. So, yeah, I don't think I will have to create a new instance because it doesn't make sense. Unless they want me to figure out the source code for this by inspecting, but I don't think that's the goal of this thing. Yeah, maybe I can look at the event listeners. And it's really hard to figure out this source code. I remember when I was trying to understand the Viz.js network through this, and I thought that this was the way that they wrote the library, but I'm pretty sure now that the reason why it's written like this is because when you use Webpack, which is a compilation for applications, it transforms the code into this format here, where it's a lot harder to understand what's going on because everything is one letter. It's still possible to understand, but it just takes a lot more time. Yeah, but it doesn't look like I'm gonna be able to learn anything from this. So I don't think it has anything to do with getting a new instance or doing something when you're getting the instance. It's probably something that I have to call or to do to change the owner through the initialization or through the constructor. It is responsible for bootstrapping and preparing a working environment for the contract. Solidity compiler appends bootstrapping logic to the runtime bytecode. Web3 transaction puts parameters at the end of the contract. Code copy is used by EVM to copy parameters into memory. It can be put onto the stack and commits to the stage storage with the help of the constructor. The end of the creation bytecode has arguments appended to it. It wasn't supposed to be executed by the EVM. It was a sort of act to store the values of the contracts for consumption in the constructor. Constructors. The code in the constructor will only be called once, only when the contract is created. For initializing state variables, constructors should be used. And long solidity code should be avoided in general. Runtime bytecode. It doesn't contain init logic and input parameters of a construction and only represents the core function of a contract stored on chain. It also contains a routine to dispatch the call to the function based on the function's hashes. Oxidata is a source code hash used for source checking on a distributed storage system such as IPFS and Swarm. It is never designed for the EVM, nor is it executed by the EVM. Applications such as Etherscans or the Web3 wallet recognize Oxidata and know where to look for contract metadata for source verification. This is interesting. So how can I read Oxidata? Use the form below. How does the exploit work? Whether you call it backdoor technique or honeypot hack, the idea here is to cheat EVM by loading a modified implementation of a contract during the contract creation phase. Loading a modified implementation of a contract. We need to recall a few key concepts. An actual representation of a contract is found in runtime bytecode, which represents dispatch routine, function body wrappers, functions, implementations, etc. It will be executed whenever someone or something has an interaction with the contract. So there's a representation on runtime bytecode and is executed whenever someone interacts with the contract. Some of the key events in the course of bootstrapping contract are: copy big chunk of the code to memory, code copy, set up a memory layout in which the smart contract is stored, return the runtime code of the contract of the created contracts that is stored in the state tree. Try. Stop executing the creation of the contract. Just change this music. We know that when a Web3 client initiates a transaction or RPC call to create a contract, the client appends constructor arguments to the end of the code as raw hex data. Another important feature is that Solidity supports inline assembly, which enables low-level operations, EVM dialect, that are not supported on or allowed by the Solidity language. One low-level built-in operation is returned that creates the execution context internal message call and returns the size and offset in the data area memory to the caller. Now let's discuss how this exploit works. First, carefully prepare a runtime bytecode which represents an altered version of a contract. Also, maybe that's why I need to use remix. If I need to do these things here, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do, because I don't want to do this on stream. Maybe you can just change the screen, but if possible I want to avoid that. Calculate the number of bytes of altered bytecode. Determine where in memory the target contract loads the argument. Load the altered bytecode into target contract's memory space as constructor argument. Instruct EVM to ignore the compiled bytecode and use inline assembly to return the modified bytecode memory range as the contract's runtime bytecode. Consider a contract that is supported to sync. It's a wonderful world, but maybe instead of sync the times they're changing. The value to return opcode can come from a complex logic, but to keep it simple and for demo we have hard-coded down. Yeah, but the thing is, it must be something easier than this because there's no assembly there. Maybe this is a more advanced case. Prepare another runtime bytecode. Source. Yeah, I don't think that's the thing that I have to do there. Initialize is used instead of the constructor when a contract uses a proxy that uses a proxy is published. In Ethereum, there are three major types of contract calls: regular call, static call, and delegate call. When contract A makes a call to contract B by calling foo, the function execution relies on contract B's storage, and the message that sender is set to contract A. This is because contract A called the function foo, so that the message that sender will be the contract A's address, the message that value would be the if sent along with the function call. Changes made to state during that function call can only affect contract B. And using delegate call, the function foo will be called on contract B, but in the context of contract A. This means that the logic of contract B would be used, but any state changes made by the function foo would affect the storage of contract A. Also, answer the center point. Yeah. But this is no longer possible when proxies are in play, as the constructor will change only the implementation contract's storage, contract B, and not the storage of the proxy contract. Therefore, an additional step is required. We need to change the constructor in a regular function. This function is conventionally called initializer unit. Change the constructor in a regular function. This function will be called on the proxy contracts once both contracts have been published. So I should save all changes of state on the proxy contract A and not on the implementation contract B. I'm not sure if I understand this really well, but I think it has something to do with the level. The thing I don't understand why that function is considered as the constructor and not any other one. Maybe it's just because it's the one that is at the top of the thing, but it's the first one. There's nothing that indicates that this should be the constructor. So it probably is. The only thing that makes sense to me is that it is the first function declared, and that makes it should be the constructor. What if I did await contract.constructor.reset address? And let me see the methods again. Contracts. Or the constructor. You could just call these functions and see if any of them do anything. Given provider proxy. And this is probably a proxy contract or something like that. Based on the article there. I think there's something to do with this.
Show me how to feel. Show me how to feel. We've been chasing all our demons. It's a lonely way to go. Show me how to feel. I wish you were healing. But you're killing me. All for a feeling. All for a feeling. I wish you were healing. But you're killing me. All for a feeling. All for a feeling. Show me how.
The thing is, I don't really understand what this is really well. Maybe I should write this down. These methods. What if I just call Fallout? Ah, but then it's the same thing probably. Oh, this is payable as well. Oh. So maybe it's just calling the function. I'm overcomplicating things. But I think I tried to call, but I called with the one. Oh, but maybe when you call like this, it calls the... Let's see if like this works. I think I tried this before and it didn't work as well. Maybe it's just as easy as that. Or maybe when I tried the first time I didn't send anything. I didn't send the value. And let's see if it works. It shouldn't be that difficult because it's still level 2, so maybe it is as easy as that. It's still worth it to spend time studying and reading these articles, because there's a lot of things that I can learn by thinking about different possible ways to exploit the vulnerabilities. If it is like that, it's just so easy that I thought it couldn't be this easy. Just call the function and then So really was that easy? No, it's just to show that if you make a typo, then yeah, but I don't know. It feels like way too easy to be there, honestly. Coin flip. This is a coin flipping game where you need to build up your winning streak by guessing the outcome of a coin flip. To complete this level, you need to use your psychic abilities to guess the correct outcome 10 times in a row. Things that might help. See the help page above section. See the help page above section beyond the console. So I'm guessing this is probably something to do with the random number generation in the blockchain using CAC 256. Some levels will require working outside of the browser console, that is, writing Solidity code and deploying it in the network to attack the level's instance contract with another contract. This can be done in multiple ways. For example, use remix to write the code and deploy it in the corresponding network. Set up a local truffle project to develop and deploy the attack contracts to truffle framework. Usually I only used hardhat so far, but maybe it might be interesting to set up with truffle just to learn a different one. I'm gonna have to create a different folder for this. I think I'm gonna have to do this. Let's see how much money I have on the wallet. Yeah, it's still plenty. So it's using safe math, consecutive wins, last hash factor. Consecutive wins equals 0. So what do I need to do again? 10 times in a row. So obviously, maybe not obviously, but I'm probably gonna have to call this function. block value equals block hash block.number sub1. If last hash equals block value reverts. Oh, so this, I guess this stops you from calling twice in the same block, I think. Because then you would have the same value twice. It's divided by this factor. So it's using the block value, the block hash, and block number to randomize. And that's the problem. Where is the gas? Oh, the gas is this. So you need to call it passing a gas, and then it should be equal to this value here, which is the division of this block value by this factor. So what you have to do is get the same block value at 10 times in a row. But you can't do that by calling multiple times in the same block, I think, because of this revert function here.
We out on the rooftop of your car under the sky. I'll tell you the truth, crossing my heart, hoping to die. I don't know nobody like you know nobody.
Okay, I got it. So I'm probably gonna have to do different environment. And this is not... looks like it's not gonna deploy. I have to think about how can I deploy to Mumbai. Maybe it's the way that I wrote here, but I think I tried multiple different ways with multiple different RPCs as well. Level 3. I think I'll probably put this on the right here. Oh, I probably need to copy the environment file. To be honest, I'm getting a little bit tired. I think I'm gonna take a break and come back later, probably. Then maybe I can set up these things off stream, set up this and set up the remix in case I need it. But so far these levels have been a lot easier than I thought they would be. But maybe it's probably because I'm still in the beginning. I think these later ones are gonna be very hard probably. And I'm probably gonna need to set up an environment for most of them as well. To write more complex code. And I can get the address there. On the console. I think I'm gonna take a break here and I'm gonna come back later. Oh, that's the problem with using truffle. So yeah, I'm gonna have to use hard hat. I had the same problem with the project where I was trying to use some libraries that help integrating connecting the user with the application, but they require this GIP here, and this GIP requires some stuff from C++, and then it gives all these errors here on Windows. It works on Linux, on the virtual machine, as far as I tested, but in Windows I tested multiple different ways and it doesn't work. I mean, I could make it work if I spend a lot more time, but I don't think it's worth it. It's because of these versions here. Both, I think it uses Python in the background and also uses C++ under the hood. Because it uses this Visual Studio stuff, and then you need to figure out all the versions of a bunch of different dependencies and Node, the versions of Node as well. I don't think it's worth it. So I'm probably gonna use hard hats. I think I'm gonna take a break here. I'm gonna set up this stuff off stream, and I'm gonna see if I can set up the remix as well with my GitHub, so I can import OpenZeppelin, and then that way maybe I can use remix instead of doing on my local machine. And then when I come back, I'm gonna continue these challenges here probably, or work on the project. Or maybe both. So yeah, see you then.